Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Nicander and I am currently in the Doctor in Athletic Training program at Indiana State University and joined by some of my classmates who are also going to introduce themselves.
My name's Dustin Anderson. As Jamie said, I'm also a student in the Doctorate of Athletic Training program at Indiana State University, and I work at Fort Sill, Oklahoma as a military athletic trainer.
All right, my name is Bobby Lanningham. I am currently in the and I am the head athletic trainer.
And my name is Nicholas Merritt. I'm a student in the Doctorate of Athletic Training program. I'm currently the head athletic trainer with Carolina Crown Drum and Bugle Corps. And during the year, I'm a graduate assistant athletic trainer with track and field and cross country at Indiana State.
Well, Adam looks a little frozen there, but we have Adam joining us as well. So I'm going to start the first question, and Dustin, I'm going to kind of have you start off this conversation and maybe talk a little bit about the transition from the traditional athletic training setting and kind of get us started on the emerging setting since you are in the military. Can you talk to us kind of about what that transition was like, what some of your challenges were, and the biggest changes really from your day-to-day life there?
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest change at the start was the the hours that I worked. Having to be at work at 5 o'clock and getting up at 4 every morning, 3:50, was the biggest change. I know there for the first few months I felt like I was in a haze, and just getting my body used to that time was one of the biggest challenges. Another one that I seen was just the volume of people we can see in a short amount of time. So how it would work is, I have basically 3 hours to see people, and that could be from 1 to 30. Just depends who comes in. It wasn't so much like a traditional setting where you were at practice, you sort of knew what was going to come in that morning. It was more of an emergency clinic type thing, where you didn't know what was going to come in. So I had to be ready for anything. And then when I was there for about 4 to 5 months, just the monotony of the same injuries that you see. You can only diagnose like a lateral ankle sprain or IT band friction syndrome until you just sort of feel like you're going through the motions with it. But realizing that, hey, I might be going through the motions with this injury, and I'm not giving that person the best care, sort of makes me stay a little more focused and a little more in tune with that aspect of it. And another thing that was pretty hard was learning the lexicon of the military. Then being in the setting this long, when I go talk to other athletic trainers, I sort of feel like I'm doing the same thing to them that happened to me the first couple months. Is like you assume everybody knows what you're talking about and how with everything. So those are some of the biggest challenges that I've seen.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the unique injuries that you might see and maybe what type of training drills these are happening, just for people that might not have been exposed to military-like athletic settings?
Some of the biggest things that I've seen, especially working in Georgia, was their heat mitigation strategy with ice sheets and everything else. I've had to do a couple of those, and I think outside of this setting, I don't think I would had to do any of that, and that's a pretty scary experience. We had one that was pretty severe, and didn't know if she was going to make it or not. And I think at my time at Fort Benning, there was a couple of trainees that died from heat injuries. So that was sort of one of the biggest things. And the obstacles that they go on, there's always that likelihood that they would fall. when they go on the rappelling tower, of course they have a line and everything for that one, and they have a belay at the bottom. But say if they're doing some type of training, it's like climbing a wall, climbing a rope, or some other obstacle, some of them are pretty like 30 feet in the air, and they don't have they have like little blue mats at the bottom, but that'll mitigate probably certain death. But had one fall about 25 feet and fractured 2 lower lumbar vertebrae, and got over there. He was knocked out, and when we spine board in the athletic training room, either it's a nice flat surface, but he was sort of wedged between those 2 blue mats, so it was quite a bit challenge to work with that. But when EMS got there, we worked pretty seamlessly to get him where he needed to be.
Yeah, it seems like you get a whole different level of emergency care than some of us in the more traditional settings might get. We're lucky enough to have someone else in an emerging setting here with us. So Nico, do you kind of want to talk next with your experience with the Drum Corps this summer and kind of tell us maybe what a typical day looks like, or maybe something that surprised you, something you're still adjusting to, just because I know that type of athletic training, I really know nothing about it.
Definitely. So working with Drum and Bugle Corps is an entirely different animal than Division I athletics, or really athletics in general, because with athletics you have practice time and you don't have practice time. With Drum Corps you have practice time and you have meal time and you have sleep. So it's very similar to, depending on the level of military setting, but you're basically living your life every day. It's very related to the military setting, in which you participate in activity and then you sleep and eat within that same activity, within the same group, and you wake up and you do it again. And everything's it's related to military setting, and there is some jargon that's used, but it's mostly for completion of the show. Basic day would be, for training, we'd do 30 days of training to get everything ready, get the show ready, and in the morning I get up before everybody else to get ice. Should be about 6:30 or so, and then breakfasts and treatments at the same time, so I kind of eat real fast and they get treatments ready, and then they have their first block, which is about 2.5, 3 hours, and then we eat again and treatments, and then another block, 2.5, 3 hours, and then we eat again and then treatments, and then we have another block which is about 4 hours, which is everyone together at the end. Then we have treatments, clean everything up, finish up notes, and then go to bed about 1:32, and then wake up at like 6:30 and do it again. So that's been training for the past 29 days. Today is the 29th day, which is great. So that's over. When we get on the road, it's going to be pretty similar, except throwing a bus ride and less practice time. So wake up in the morning at the housing site. They go through their visual block. They get food, and then go through again another block. Then they get ready for the show, get in their costume and uniform, and then prep for the show, do the show, get done with the show, have awards for the show, get on a bus, kind of sleep, get to the housing site, sleep on the floor, and then wake up and do it again. So there are going to be a couple free days in there, but other than that, that's pretty much how it goes. But the great thing about the setting is the variety of injuries that you do see. I think I've had more clinical experience in the past 2 months than I did with track and field in like almost a full semester. So track and field, you get the continuous injury, like lower extremity, kind of know what's going on, ankle sprain type stuff. When here, since it's such a variety of tasks, you have people who play large horns, small horns, drummers who carry stuff on the front of them. Everybody's marching either sideways. The drummers march like a karaoke style. The guard is throwing sabers, flags, and rifles, so they're all different sizes, all different weights, so they're going to carry in different ways, so they get different injuries in the shoulder and elbow depending on how they throw. And concussion is highly prevalent in that group too, because they're tossing heavy things in the air and they have to catch them. So, but yeah, that's a basic overview of drum corps in a small nutshell.
Now, with the schedule, do you sort of feel like Bill Murray's character in Groundhog Day?
I haven't seen that movie.
Oh. It's sort of like the same day keeps repeating itself.
Oh,
Like
yeah, definitely. Yep, that's exactly how it is. You know, wake up in the morning and go through. I always feel like my morning is gone by the time 1 o'clock hits. I feel like I haven't gotten anything done, even though I've been up since like 6. Because it's just like go in the morning, especially with breakfast and then treatments and then organizing and then doing administration duties, and then by then it's time to eat again. And I'm like, I feel like all I do is eat. But if I don't eat, then I don't have food, energy. So, but
yeah, I definitely know how that goes, especially with my job. Have you found out like any strategies just to keep your sanity from like the monotony of the day?
We had fun things where we make the schedule, so the admin makes a schedule for the members, and we just like, instead of the schedule is the same, but we write it up on a whiteboard. We change the theme of the day for the schedule just to make it kind of fun. So, like 3 days ago, we did like the Lord of the Rings theme, and instead of wake up, it was like you shall not sleep, you know, and we did stuff like that all the way through. So we have different themes every day where we kind of come up with it the night before during the admin meeting, and it's like kind of casual. So it's kind of fun.
Cool.
Adam, I'm gonna switch it up to you, and I know you're kind of working in the outpatient rehabilitation clinic setting. Can you kind of tell us how you think that your education or athletic training education kind of prepares you better for this position than anybody else, or maybe what unique skills you have to offer that might be marketable in this setting?
Well, first, I think our specificity with musculoskeletal disorders prepares us a lot better than say a nurse practitioner or a physician assistant necessarily. They get a more broad education when it comes to healthcare, and since we focus a lot on musculoskeletal stuff, if you're in an outpatient setting and you're dealing with a lot of orthopedic things, it puts us at a bit of an advantage there. And with our patient education, I think throughout our education, patient education and communication is a huge key to athletic training. We're in constant communication with patients and parents and doctors and coaches, and so having that foundation of communication skill translates a lot to the one-on-one time that you can get with a patient at an outpatient clinic. So the patient satisfaction skyrockets when you have ATs in your clinic. That's what the research has said, and it improves patient turnover essentially, because you're able to generate more evaluation and management CPT codes, and so you're getting through a little bit more patients, and so it helps out the physicians get through more patients and increases revenue. And so it just all comes back to being able to evaluate effectively, especially with musculoskeletal things, and patient communication and satisfaction, having that amiable relationship with people helps a lot.
Okay, thanks for that little insight on that setting. Bobby, let's switch over to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your setting and maybe some of the challenges that you have there?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about law enforcement and athletic trainers in law enforcement setting. In the law enforcement setting, you can kind of compare it to your more traditional athletic training, as well as something like the military setting, like Dustin was talking about. medicine. Most of the injuries you're going to see in the law enforcement are your musculoskeletal injuries. So, for example, a police officer was chasing after a criminal and they strained their hamstring, or through wrestling with a criminal that tried to put them in custody, they dislocated their shoulder or something like that. Most of that is going to be your musculoskeletal injury. You're obviously going to have patients that, or officers that get a gunshot wound in the line of duty or a stab wound, they have to go through surgery. Then you're going to see them after for rehabilitation. You're not going to see that a whole lot due to the safety and stuff that we have in place for the police officers, but most of your stuff is going to be injury rehabilitation through musculoskeletal injury. Another thing that we work with that you may not see normally in your traditional athletic training is workplace safety or ergonomics and things like that. So how can we make for example, how can we make the officers' equipment more proficient for the job, or more effective for the job? So can we reduce the weight of the belt that they have to carry around? Or can we reduce the weight of the bulletproof vest that they have to wear and still make it safe for them? So we work on things like that as far as making the job easier for the officer while still keeping them safe. Kind of another area is your chain of command. So it can also be related to, I guess, you have deputy chiefs, your chief, or everybody that you have to communicate with. Then you have to communicate with workman's comp and insurance, stuff like that. So a lot of it, there is a lot of overlap, but there are some specifics as far as law enforcement specific that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I imagine the equipment that has to be present for all of them is a little non-negotiable. So I imagine kind of working around that and how that relates to injury prevention and things like that might be really unique to that setting. What I kind of wanted to just ask the group, and anyone can answer this, you know, in your emerging settings, new settings, what were maybe some new skills you feel like you had to learn, or maybe where the athletic training education didn't prepare you quite as well, so you kind of had to learn on the fly in this new setting?
Yeah, I can talk really quick about that. Since at the outpatient clinic, it's different from a traditional setting because your patient population is huge. It's essentially the general public if anybody's got a musculoskeletal problem or orthopedic problem. So you can see anybody between a 5-year-old with a wrist sprain and a 75-year-old who needs a knee replacement and stuff like that. So the traditional athletic training education process is usually unable to get a lot of that experience with a wide range of patients. So that's something that they look for when you're going into the setting, is that if you are able to generate some experience with different populations of people or different age ranges, more diverse populations, you'll probably be more suited for this setting. So Nico, what do you think?
So I think that if someone just graduated from an undergrad and they're kind of like, I need to get experience, don't do drum corps. It's definitely a throw you in the water and swim type of deal. And I've literally seen like everything. It makes me rethink everything. I want to go back and reread the Arnheims like every other day. It makes you realize you can't remember everything. As much as you want to try, you can't. And if you can, kudos. But I have tried, and I'll like pull out my phone, and in my head I'm like, I remember learning this, and I remember it being like this was something, and then I'd confirm it, or I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe it's a differential, but at least I still referred. You know, so we might get something else. And I think that's the main thing with this setting is you determine whether or not you need to refer, and that's the education that's going to support you the most through your athletic training education, where you need to determine whether or not this is emergent, whether or not you can handle it, whether or not it's going to hurt the person over time, and that's one of the major things, because with this setting, if someone's out for like 2 days, it's the equivalent of being out for like 3 or 4 weeks in like an athletic setting. They practice for 12 hours a day. They learn an entire like half choreography of one part of the show in 1 day, and if one person misses all of that, then they're behind that 11 hours. So it's definitely a situation where you have to be on top of what you know. You have to be on top of remembering the basic skills, but also the slight complicated skills to, okay, this is positive, this is negative, and then you have to make a lot of clinical decisions that could affect somebody's spot, and their spots can get taken by alternates very easily if they have like a season-ending injury. Earlier on in the spring training, alternates were going in and out of spaces a lot because everybody didn't know the show yet, but now it's kind of like everybody knows the show, and they're going to try to keep people in as long as possible. So now it's kind of a maintaining the snowball from rolling down the hill too fast type of thing with any injury. Let's make it through the summer, and if it's going to detrimentally affect you in the future, then you probably have to stop. And they either go with a hole in the show, they fill the hole in the show, or they fill in an alternate and try to teach them the entire show in like 4 days, which is super stressful. So, but yeah.
I think one of the things that I felt underprepared about was just the impact that you can have, and working with the athletic population, you get in that mindset of wins and losses, and you still go home. But working with the military has added a whole new perspective on the impact that we can have with patients. I think when I first started noticing this is when I was working with IBOLC, which is Infantry Basic Officer Leadership Course, and they were running lanes. So the reality of what they do hit me there, because they have like the M4s, they have like the SAWs, which is the automatic platoon weapons, they have grenades, star clusters going off, and you're like, holy crap, these people are going to go, and they're training to go into a bad spot that you probably don't want to go into. And it hit me again here at Fort Sill when I was out in the field, just working with FTX3 is just like their final field event, and I was with Op4, which is basically plays the bad guy, and the drill sergeant was like, your job is you're the bad dudes, and you're going to die when they come in here and they assault this position. So I guess it was just more of a personal thing that I just felt underprepared for, was the gravity of what you can and can't do in your patient population, what they're training to do, and it sort of makes you want to go that little bit extra and work that much harder, because you know they're not going to go to a safe space for the most part with their jobs.
Some of the things that have been said, it's hard to, like Nico said, we always are looking back in the book or looking at the literature to see, to look back at what we've learned in the past and see and try to remember it. It's that hard to remember what we already learned, and now you have to try to take what you may have remembered.
Well, okay. We'll come back to Bobby once he comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
there he is.
I think in the law enforcement setting, the mechanisms of injury or the mechanics of the injury are similar to the way an athlete's going to get injured in the traditional setting, but the way it occurred is completely different than the way an athlete's going to get injured. these guys are getting injured in the line of duty. You have to think about canine officers who are tugging and pulling on a dog who may be just as strong as they are. You got SWAT officers who are going in a house where they don't even know what's around the corner. So you have to, it's hard to take what you learned in class and put it in a setting where it's not a traditional setting. You have to alter what you know to fit that specific setting.
So I think we've heard a lot, about the new skills and how athletic trainers can really provide, unique skills that maybe traditional athletic training didn't realize. And I think we're expanding our profession, and I think that that is a really positive thing. So can we have at least one person kind of speak to the importance of athletic trainers reaching out to emerging settings, and what you might tell a young athletic trainer interested in this, what they could do to try to get involved and branch out a little bit?
I think it goes back to what Adam said earlier about our depth and scope of knowledge about musculoskeletal injuries and the value that we can bring to any type of sports medicine team or any type of healthcare team. And I would let the young athletic trainers know that the profession's growing. We're moving to an entry-level master's program. We got the first accredited DAT program. The future looks bright, and you have a responsibility to help move it forward. And for the people that are working in the emerging settings, they're paving a way for you to have more options in the future. And good luck. And there's basically just good luck.
Okay, does anybody else have questions for each other as experts here in emerging settings before we wrap this up?
Go ahead, Bobby.
I was just going to say, kind of feeding off of that, I think it comes down to there is definitely opportunity in these types of settings. It comes down to teaching the students that are coming out what these settings are. So I know I had a list, or we learned about different emerging settings, but I had my mindset on going into athletics, and a lot of students coming out have that mindset. But if in the educational setting we bring in people from emerging settings, like people from the law enforcement or people from the military, and really talk about the benefits of having people in that setting and how it can impact society and have a big impact on these people who are working in those settings, I think that the opportunities in the future are great for emerging settings.
I think that's a great place to leave off. Thank you for everybody's insights, and thanks for joining us. I think that was a good talk about emerging settings, and it's really exciting to see where the profession is going to go from here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.